Steve Adubato here. We are pleased to be joined by our good friend. I've lost count of the number of times you've been with us.
Many times.
Every time is valuable. He is Dr. Steve Margeotes, who is Executive Director and founder of Main Street Counseling. We were talking about veterans as part of this long-term series, Help for Our Heroes. What kind of mental health issues do most veterans and their family members, Steve, deal with?
Few things. There's depression. There's social withdrawal. There's an overreaction, which happens a lot of times with anger.
What do you mean overreaction to anger?
Well, sometimes they're mad for what they've experienced, and sometimes that comes out in different situations. We had a vet recently who went into a store, and they asked him if he was a veteran, and he overreacted. What difference does that make? Why are you asking me if I'm a veteran? Truth was, they asked him because there was a discount if you were a veteran.
Wow.
So situations like that, kind of like road rage, and you see that somebody overreacting to a situation. Sometimes it's difficult with authority figures, okay, to deal with them. That could be bosses. With spouses, parenting issues, money issues, conflict issues. Not all vets, but the ones we've been seeing at Main Street Counseling, those are some of the issues. We run anger management groups, and a lot of vets are coming in through the anger management group to deal with their reactions to situations.
Do most veterans, Steve, know, are they aware that there's some sort of problem, that they do need help? Or, I know it's not one or the other, but, or is it that someone else picks it up and tries to facilitate getting a veteran into help?
It's more the spouse.
It's more the spouse?
It's more the spouse who calls first at Main Street. We had great luck over the last couple of years with spouses coming in first for individual help and then bringing the vet in to do couples work. So if I had to say if it was one or the other, it's the spouse more than, you know, I see you're different. I know you're different. I know what you went through. So it's the spouse more than the vet, our experience, who's come into Main Street.
So right now, the spouses, these significant others, those who are closest to veterans watching this series right now, they see something. They see an overreaction, what they perceive to be a consistent overreaction to a certain situation. All of us have, not all of us, some of us have anger issues, but you're talking about beyond the pale. Mm-hmm. You're talking about patterns that are disconcerting, concerning. What does that person do?
I would acknowledge the situation. I would not deny it. I would not minimize it. I would acknowledge it, not just calling Main Street Counseling, but something's off. You see it a lot at home, like I said, with withdrawing.
What happens if, excuse me for interrupting.
Go ahead.
You confront it, you deal with it, the vet pushes back, gets more defensive, now what do you have?
I think the spouse should come to therapy first and deal with that family dynamic. Steve, it's similar to somebody comes in with a drug or alcohol problem. You know, there's a tremendous level of denial, but it's the spouse and the kids who are seeing the different interactions at home. I think the worst thing is asking somebody to go for help and they don't go, and then the dynamic stays the way it is. So it's similar to going to AA or Al-Anon. You know, let's break up the dynamic. Something's off.
How honest is the conversation we have in our state first, but our nation overall, Steve, about the kinds of challenges and problems veterans face? Everyone will say, you know, you talk about veterans discounts. Everyone will also say, I mean, as a Yankee fan, in the middle of the seventh inning, you know what happens. You have a veteran who served. You know, God bless America, everyone holds a flag, and we love our veterans. That's great. Not nearly enough.
Hardly enough.
But the kind of conversation you're talking about is difficult.
It is.
But absolutely necessary.
It is. It's difficult. You know what it is, Steve? It's intimate. You're talking about real feelings, okay? And that's hard for all of us to talk about. The hardest thing to talk about is money. And
why money?
Because it reflects so much your self-esteem. How much are you making? How much are you not making? The resentment comes back. I've come back. I've served. And that money issue comes home first and foremost.
So if the veteran is struggling with money issues because he or she is struggling with employment issues, it's not just a money issue, it's an employment issue, it may be a transportation issue, it may be a training issue. You got all these things coming together. How do you deal with that or those issues from a mental health point of view? Because it's not that one thing.
No. I think what you got to do is look at the overall picture and talk about everything. Let's acknowledge, let's be as genuine as we can as therapists, acknowledge this is overwhelming. Okay, and sometimes the reaction is, you know what, I'm just going to withdraw. I'm not coming out of the house. I don't want to start dealing with going for interviews and getting rejected, and I don't have a car or mass transportation. But it needs to be acknowledged that this is difficult, and what you went through is an incredible experience, okay? And that experience more and more and more has to be talked about. There's where the trauma impacts your decision-making and your impulse control.
The conversation we're having here at the Healthcare Foundation, I'll repeat what I've said in some other of these interviews, that we're having a roundtable with 12 experts, advocates, government officials, people who care deeply about providing services to our veterans who need the help and finding a way to make that outreach more effective. Why is that conversation important?
I think it's important because this issue has to be on the forefront. You know, if you don't see it every day, it becomes invisible. Similar to the Yankee thing. You know, you see it in the middle of the 7th inning, but then when do you see it? Probably it's one of the most visible things we see on TV with respect to vets on a daily basis.
It is. It's better that it's done than not done, but it is not nearly where we need to go.
Exactly. Those spots, you could say, are public service ads in some ways, because you're acknowledging that population.
Steve Margeotes, as I said, every time you join us, you enlighten us, challenge us, and get us to think about the needs of those who are too often forgotten. Thank you, Steve.
Good. Good seeing you, Steve. Thank you.
State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is a production of the Caucus Educational Corporation, celebrating over 25 years of broadcast excellence. State of Affairs with Steve Adubato is brought to you from the Agnes Veris NJTV studio at 2 Gateway. Funding has been provided by Adler Aphasia Center, New Jersey State Nurses Association, and the Institute for Nursing, Rowan University, TD Bank, Choose New Jersey, Summit Medical Group, and by QualCare Inc. Promotional support provided by Meadowlands Regional Chamber, building essential connections that drive business growth, and by Jaffe Communications, where business, media, and government converge in New Jersey.